Hey there, we need to talk about drop-shotting because it is back in a fairly big way in Modern Warfare, and it is also completely broken with a keyboard in an overpowered way. I'll get to that problem later. First, with a controller, there's nothing crazy going on. Drop-shotting is back in the way that you can go prone and you'll drop fairly quickly in roughly 400 milliseconds, and you can be aiming the entire time, accurately shooting as you drop. I will clarify, in order to aim the whole way down, you have to let go of pressing forward, otherwise you'll get a little shuffle when you hit the ground, but if you stop moving, you'll aim all the way down. And that wasn't the case in Black Ops 4. You needed the Stock 2 attachment to do that, which was expensive and you could only have it on certain weapons. Otherwise, when you went prone, you had to put your hand out and you couldn't aim during that animation, so drop-shotting was practically non-existent. It was all about the jump shot. And in general, recent CODs have not allowed for quick drop-shotting. All the advanced movement made jumping become the norm. But just be aware, drop-shotting seems very viable again. That information alone would make for a pretty lame video though. On keyboard is where this becomes a big problem. Last video, when I was comparing the input methods, I was saying how yeah, a mouse can definitely have an aim advantage in the right hands, but the controller auto-aim is really strong, and I often find myself doing better with it in this game, especially at longer range where it ain't easy to stay on target, while it seems like controller users can straight up lock onto me. Well, there's no debate this time. This is an undeniable advantage that keyboard users have, and I think it needs to be addressed. You are welcome to call me horrible names for bringing this to light, but especially with crossplay next weekend, I guarantee it wouldn't take long for this to catch on, and this is a beta, the best possible time to draw attention to things you think are a problem and need to change. What makes drop-shotting broken on keyboard is the fact that you can have a separate keybind for prone, as opposed to your only option being toggling into crouch and then to prone when you hold down a controller button. That said, when you aren't moving or you're only walking, the time it takes to go to prone is roughly the same for holding into prone on a controller versus going straight to prone on a keyboard. It's a bit over 400 milliseconds. The game-breaking part arises when you're sprinting. On a keyboard, you can break your sprint by going directly to prone, and you get absolutely magnetized to the ground. This is impossible on a controller because if you're sprinting and you try to break your sprint by holding the prone button, it's the same as the crouch button and you're going to slide instead. To drop to the ground, you would need to stop sprinting first, and then you would end up with the normal prone time. I'll show a more detailed comparison here of regular prone that was 416 milliseconds to the ground, or 650 milliseconds if you count the time to after that little bump at the end where you kind of bounce off the ground, and that can mess with your aim. And now here is going prone out of sprint. It was cut down to 250 milliseconds, and there was no bounce when hitting the ground. So not only much faster than the 416 of regular prone time, but nowhere near the 650 with the bounce included. I also need to show how insane this looks in third person. To do that, I figured I would drop shot on someone but miss so that I could watch the kill cam, and this is what they saw. Shoom, I straight up disappear, just teleport to the ground. Even at half speed, that is nuts, and he has to adjust his aim big time there since I was so close. On top of that already being dumb, what this allows you to do is break out of super sprint and not have the increased ADS penalty. In fact, that example I just showed was coming out of super sprint. Here's breaking super sprint by aiming and shooting. That took about 283 milliseconds to get to the first shot. That's the same for controller or keyboard. It's also the same if you stop pushing forward and then aim and shoot. I counted 17 frames. But here is breaking it by going straight to prone. Only 184 milliseconds to the first shot being fired. I counted 11 frames. You save a ton of time and you're harder to shoot. I know there aren't many people trying mouse and keyboard right now, but I was surprised there wasn't any online discussion about this. I found nothing in a Reddit search, and it is truly insane how quickly you can drop to the ground with full control over your gun and full accuracy. So, controversial hot take here, I'm gonna say this has the potential to be incredibly annoying and it needs a patch. I was never much of a drop shotter myself. I was always a default layout scrub. I never got used to tactical or whichever one allows for easier drop shotting or jump shotting, and I never cared to buy a scoof controller. But drop shotting is here, and you may need to get used to it. The interesting thing is that the OP version of it on keyboard almost single-handedly makes rushing a viable strategy again in Modern Warfare, and it obviously needs to be slowed down. I'm not saying, yeah, buff the controller prone time to match, but I think the existence of drop shotting is a good thing here to give some edge to the pushing playstyle. You might hate that sentence if you're fully on the side of slow, tactical gameplay, and I'm on that side to some extent as well. I don't want to be dying to drop shots in every gunfight. That would be beyond obnoxious, but I'm sure you've noticed that many elements in Modern Warfare punish you for having a mobile playstyle and really reward camping, like the more complex maps, being able to mount guns, having kill streaks over point streaks, the lack of a minimap in the first couple days, how broken head glitching still seems to be, especially on maps like Azir Cave, I feel like. Dropshotting being powerful made rushing good again. You still have to be smart to do well, you need to keep cover nearby, but until I discovered this, my experience has been, when I'm pushing around the map, I usually run into death after death from people sitting on head glitches. Then when I try camping it up and patrolling a single building, it's suddenly very easy to do much better. And even with broken dropshotting, camping is still very powerful. But something like this, if it were made fair for everyone, could be a major tool to fight back against that if you like the high action playstyle. So I don't know, keyboard prone time needs a fix, but also know that dropshotting, even on controller, ain't bad, and is one technique you should have in your arsenal if you plan to be rushing about. Thanks for watching, I'll catch you next time.